All right. Hey, you just got a sheet of paper. On one side, there's some notes that you're going to jot in a second, but I want you to flip to the other side. The bottom half of that, the top half is for middle schoolers. You don't really need to worry about that unless you have a brother or sister that's in middle school and they want to go on a trip with us to Wichita. They can. You can share that information with them. But if not, look at the bottom. High school late night coming up this Friday. We are going to get together at Nick and Jess Sween's house, and we're just going to hang out, have some pizza after the football game, hang out, play some games, be all free to you. You just get to come out, hang out, eat some food, be some good stuff. So as soon as the game's over, you can head over to Nick and Jess's house over on Trinity Drive. It's about a half a block off of Indian Trail and 30th Street, if you don't know where that is. So you can make a phone call to me if you can't find it, or one of the other youth leaders if you have their phone number, and they'll let you know where Nick and Jess live. If you don't know and you're planning on coming on Friday, talk to us before you leave so we can give you some directions, okay? So who's going to come to the late night after the football game on Friday? Cool. Good. I like it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Bring your friends. It'll be great. So, okay. Gentlemen, are you ready for me to start the lesson? Are we good for recording and stuff? Okay. Well, here we go. All right. So, as you've probably noticed, we're going to have an ongoing theme this semester at CrossCurrent, and that theme is Jesus is. We have right here. What we're going to do is we're going to be talking about who Jesus is, obviously, and what that means for us, and why that makes a difference for us. You see, we want to make sure that you understand who this guy Jesus is and why he's so important, because we believe here at CrossCurrent that he changes everything. We believe that he's the most important thing that you can have in your life, and we want to explain to you why we feel that way. So we've got this awesome backdrop that Taylor worked on. Isn't that cool, having a little set for CrossCurrent? Yeah, let's give Taylor a hand for working on that. Awesome job. One other thing that we're going to have in the coming weeks is we're going to take a piece of wood and we're going to paint it with chalkboard paint. And we're going to have Jesus is on it, and then we're going to have pieces of chalk that you guys can write on that, who Jesus is to you. We want you guys to be involved in this as well. So be looking for that in the weeks to come. We think that'll be pretty cool and give you guys an opportunity to write on the wall, because that's always fun. Also, if you haven't got one yet, we have these Jesus is bracelets. We're starting to run low on some of the larges. So if you have one that's too big, switch out for a small so there can be a large available. But if you haven't got one of those, you can pick it up after CrossCurrent over in the coffee bar tonight. We liked them, one, because we think it's going to remind you when you're wearing it of the things we've been talking about at CrossCurrent. We also think that people might say, hey, what's that bracelet all about? And that gives you an opportunity to say who Jesus is to you and tell them about it. It gives you an opportunity to invite them to come to church, come to CrossCurrent, and learn more about this Jesus guy. So, plus, they look pretty cool, don't they? So that's a bonus. That's a bonus. So it says Jesus is weird. That's good. That's funny. Hey, but weird was a good thing, right? Yeah, so Jesus is weird is cool. He is weird. Jesus is weird. He did things different. So this semester, we're really excited about what we're going to be talking about, and really excited about what we're going to do. And we're going to be focusing a lot about what's in here, the Bible. And if you don't have one of these CrossCurrent Bibles from us, we want to give you one of those too. We had these made last year. If you haven't had an opportunity to pick one up, we'll have those in the coffee bar afterwards as well. We want you to make sure you have one of those. One of the other things we want to do with this series is we're going to be posting some things on Facebook, and we'd love it if you would interact with us on that. We might be asking questions about the lesson. We might just be asking questions in general. But one of the things we want to do is we want to try to flood Facebook with this Jesus is idea. Because how many of you would agree that there's a lot of junk on Facebook today? If you're not raising your hand, you apparently aren't on Facebook, because there's a ton of junk on Facebook. But we also believe that Facebook can have a lot of positive stuff on it, but we got to make sure that we're putting it out there. And so we are going to be posting some things, and we want you guys to be commenting on it, sharing it, whatever, to help flood Facebook with this idea so that people start seeing this Jesus is thing all over the place and start to wonder what's so important about him. Why do people care about it? And hopefully get them to think about it. So we really want to encourage you to do that. How many of you, and be honest with me, at some point in your life have had the thought, Jesus is kind of boring? Anybody? Yeah, I have. I'm a pastor, and I've thought that. I can't think that, right? I'm a pastor. No, but Jesus is kind of boring, is something that we think of, something that is a common thought for a lot of people today. And I want to show you a couple reasons why I think that might be. I got a couple pictures I want to share with you. The first one, right? Doesn't he look like a guy you just want to go hang out with, right? No, it's like, okay, dude, you stay over there. I'm going to hang out with my friends over here, right? Because that's just like creepy. Next picture, we get even creepier. That's like, that is the last guy I want to hang out with. I'm sorry, but that's just not pretty. How about this next one? Oh, yeah, the cheesy Christian thing. Please call, I miss you. Jesus had a cell phone, right? He's right here. Yeah. Well, maybe I'm the only one that thinks this, but don't those pictures kind of make Jesus look kind of cheesy and corny? Yeah. I don't think that Jesus is that way, though. I think he's a pretty awesome dude. I've read some pretty cool things about him, and I think that I don't think he's cheesy and corny, but before we get past this idea, there is a song that I need to share with you, and I will admit it's probably my all-time favorite song. It's called Jesus Is My Friend.
Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is my friend. Jesus is a friend of mine. I have a friend in Jesus. Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is my friend. Jesus is a friend of mine.
Now listen to the lyrics, they're amazing.
My life as it should be. He taught me how to turn my cheek when people laugh at me. I've had friends before, and I can tell you that he's one who will never leave you flat. Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is my friend. Jesus is a friend of mine. I have a friend in Jesus. Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is my friend. Jesus is a friend of mine. He taught me how to pray and how to save my soul. He taught me how to praise my God and still play rock and roll. The music may sound different, but the message is the same. It's just an instrument to praise his name. Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is my friend. Jesus is a friend of mine. I have a friend in Jesus. Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is a friend of mine.
Now this is the breakdown that goes into a guitar solo, so pay attention. A bass guitar solo, actually.
Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is a friend of mine. Once I tried to run and hide, but Jesus came and found me and he touched me down inside. He is like a Mountie, he always gets his man, and he'll zap you any way he can. Zap. Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is my friend. Jesus is a friend of mine. I have a friend in Jesus. Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is my friend. Jesus is a friend of mine. He loves me when I'm right. He loves me when I'm wrong. He loves me when I waste my time by writing silly songs. He loves me when I'm quiet and I have nothing to say. He'll love me when I'm perfect if I ever get that way. Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is my friend. Jesus is a friend of mine. I have a friend in Jesus. Jesus is a friend of mine.
That guy's got moves right there.
Jesus is a friend of mine. I have a friend in Jesus. Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus. Jesus is a friend of mine.
He's going to be sore tomorrow. Ooh.
That's terrific, Sal. Thank you very much.
That's terrific.
Beautiful. Well.
Okay, now you can laugh at that, but I guarantee you when you lay down to go to bed at night, you're going to be going, Jesus is a friend, Jesus is my friend. It's so catchy. It is, yes, sir. Yes, probably. So if you're wanting to listen to that when you get home, Jesus is My Friend by Sunseed, okay? Sunseed, Sonseed. I know you are. I know you're dying to download that on your iPod, all right? So, okay. So tonight we're in the first week of this Jesus Is idea, and we're going to be talking about a lot of the characteristics of who Jesus is. But what we're going to be talking about tonight is this idea that Jesus is better, and that's the first blank on your outlines if you're filling those out. Jesus is better. You see, Jesus is better than those cheesy, corny pictures that we looked at. He's better than that goofy song that we just listened to. He's better than all of that. In fact, Jesus is better than me. He's better than you. He's better than your friends. Jesus is even better than all of those Bible characters and those Bible stories that we read about. And we're going to get to see that tonight. We're going to focus on Hebrews chapter 11. And Hebrews chapter 11 is commonly referred to as faith's hall of fame. And the reason that is because the majority of the chapter focuses on people of great faith. People who have shown great faith in God and have been rewarded because of that. And so I want to run through just a couple of examples real quick. And if you want to read more on this, you can look up chapter 11 in your Bible sometime. But you're going to jump to verse 7. The first verse explains what faith is, and it says this: Now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. It then spends a lot of time giving these examples, and I want to run through a couple of them real quick. Verse 7 says, By faith Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear, built an ark to save his family. You've heard that story, right? Noah and the ark. Even before it was raining, he started building that ark because of his faith that God would do what God said he would do. Verse 8, by faith Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. Verse 23, by faith Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born, because they saw he was no ordinary child. Verse 27, continuing Moses' story, by faith Moses left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He persevered because he saw him who is invisible. Verse 30, by faith the walls of Jericho fell after the army had marched around them for 7 days. Verse 31, by faith the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient. And the author of Hebrews goes on and gives many more examples and talks about people who were ridiculed for their faith, people who were stoned to death for their faith, people who were stabbed to death because of their faith, people who were sawed in two because of their faith. I'm serious. That's in Hebrews chapter 11. Pick up your Bible. It's got some cool stuff in there. It's probably kind of gross. You don't really want to watch somebody get sawed in two in a movie, but reading about it in the Bible might be kind of cool. So the first 38 verses are really focused on this faith idea and focused on these examples of people who showed great faith from Noah and Moses and David and all these different characters. And you have to know that in this time, the Jews who this would have been being told to, these were their heroes. The writer of Hebrews is talking about all of these people that they looked up to. And he's saying that Noah was a man of great faith, that Moses was a man of great faith, that David was a man of great faith, that Rahab was a woman of great faith. And they'd all be sitting there going, yeah, you're right, we agree. And they would expect that the chapter would end with something like this. And all of these people showed great faith, and you should try to be like them. And they would have said, yeah, you're right. We should try to be like them. But let's look at how Hebrews chapter 11 ends. Verses 39 and 40 say this: These were all commended, talking about all these people, all these examples of faith. These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised, since God had planned something better for us. Something better than all those other people of faith that had been examples. Something better. And that something better was a someone. And that someone was Jesus. Jesus is better. Now, the writer is sitting here telling these people, all of your heroes, they're great. They did some great things. They had great faith, and God honored them because of that. But he says, guess what? All of them combined don't add up to Jesus. Jesus is a bigger deal. He says, Jesus is more important than all of them. He said, this Jesus guy comes, he flips the script. He changes everything. He says, because of Jesus, now you can go directly to God. Because of Jesus, there's a sacrifice that's made, so we don't have to sacrifice animals like they did in the Old Testament anymore. And see, in this time, the Jews in their temple, they would have had different curtains hanging for the different levels of people that could go close to the altar in the church. So the common folk would just be able to go into this first part of the church. And then you'd have some elders and stuff that would be able to go a little bit farther. And then you'd have the priests and the pastors that could go into the very holy of holies. And so people would kind of sneak to God because there was this idea that they weren't worthy of talking to him, weren't worthy of being around him, so they'd kind of sneak to him. And the writer here in Hebrews says you don't have to do that anymore. Says you can walk right up to him. God is right there. You can talk to him. You can have a personal relationship with him not because of all of those people of great faith, but because of something better, because of Jesus. You see, Jesus is something better, but what is it that makes him better? Why do we view Jesus as something better? We're going to look at two things. The first one there in your outline says, Jesus is the desire of all nations. Now, the Bible calls Jesus the desire of all nations. What does desire mean? Yeah. Right, exactly. If you just got done running 5 miles, you're really thirsty, right? So you have a desire for water or something wet. If you haven't ate all day, if you didn't eat breakfast, you skipped lunch and it's 7 o'clock at night, you have a desire for food, right? Because you're hungry. And what the Bible says is that Jesus is the desire of all nations, that we naturally have this desire inside of us that can only be fulfilled by Jesus. Do you see that in society today? Do you see that desire for something more? How couldn't you see it? Think about movies right now. What type of movies are really popular? Superhero movies, right? Why? What happens in a superhero movie? There's a town, there's a place, there's a planet, there's something that is a mess, right? Evil has destroyed this place. And then what happens? Here comes the superhero. And the superhero saves the day. The superhero defeats evil and sets everything right again. Why are those movies so popular? Why have superheroes been around for so long? Why haven't superheroes been a fad? They do. And it's exactly what people desire inside of them. To have someone come and make things better. To have someone come and save the day. And it's not going to be Superman. It's not going to be Batman. Not going to be any of those superheroes. It's going to be Jesus because he's better. And that desire that we have in our hearts, that desire we have in our lives, can only be fulfilled by Jesus. He's been the answer